I'd like to welcome all of y'all to Supervisors meeting tonight. First, we're going to have a moment of silence. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I'll need the approval of the agenda.
There are no changes from staff, but nothing was sent out and we have no recommended changes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Heard the motion by Mr. Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, open the floor for citizens' comments. There's no citizens' comments. I close the citizens' comment. Next is the consent agenda. Mr. Carter.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we have 5 items on the consent agenda. The first is a request to actually go and do some supplemental appropriations. There are miscellaneous items, forfeited assets to the sheriff's office. All of it is fairly small amounts. So that's the first item. Secondly, we have a request to accept a grant from Tobacco Commission amount of $250,000 to start the process of developing at least one lot in New London. This is specifically for grading, an amount of $250,000. You all, of course, had a work session earlier in the year with Todd and came up with consensus as to items for the secondary plan. So as a consent item, you have that as item C for approval of the revised six-year secondary plan. You have a request from myself as well as Ms. Pierce to advertise revised nursing home rates, which will be a public hearing on that in July. And then lastly, a request from the Sheriff's Office to accept a burn justice assistance grant in the amount of $953.
Carl, would you want to make all these in one motion?
Yes, sir, please.
Any discussion? I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Y'all heard the motion by Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Amy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Yes. Chair votes yes. Next will be the approval of the minutes for April 24th, 2017. Do you have any questions on those?
Mr. Chairman, I read through them and I sent Ms. Bridget a couple of corrections, just grammar things. I think she's noted them, so unless someone else has corrections, I'll make a motion we submit it or accept it as submitted.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next we have action and discussion items. On number 9, first A, consideration request to execute a work order for solid waste permitting and design services. That will be presented by Mr. Shelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before I get started tonight, I want to recognize a few folks who are in our back row. Mr. Mike Donner, our solid waste facility manager, Mr. Bob Dick, and Mr. Charles Warren, representing SCS Engineers. They're our landfill consultant and our landfill engineering firm. Here tonight to discuss the permitting phase for the next cells of the Bedford County landfill. Over the past several years, SCS Engineers has analyzed the operation of the facility on Route 43. This work included the delineation of wetlands, development of a master plan for the facility, volume calculations, financial modeling, and the evaluation of other disposal options. The result of all the analysis is that landfilling operations remains the most cost-effective long-term option for the county's waste disposal needs. The next step in this process is to develop a permit application that outlines future waste disposal areas. It's the recommendation of SC Engineers as well as staff that this should encompass the entire footprint of the facility. So basically what we're saying is instead of permitting each individual disposal unit, we're requesting permission to go ahead and permit the entire facility. That's typically the way that it's done throughout landfill facilities in Virginia. Once that application is complete, we would submit that to the Virginia DEQ for review and approval. Addressing the facility footprint as a whole does have economies of scale by doing all the permitting at one time. That does end up being cheaper in the long run. The estimated cost for SCS to perform the service is $240,000. That isn't a final dollar amount. There will be additional work to basically finalize those permits and do additional work once the DEQ provides their comments. So this is only the initial phase. So don't be surprised when I come back before you again asking for additional permitting dollars. Again, this is just step one in the process. Public Works Committee, consisting of Supervisor Scott, Supervisor Dooley, have approved this work. We've discussed it over the past couple of months at a couple of our meetings. And again, SCS Engineers is here tonight, and they'd be glad to answer any questions as well as I concerning the process.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I got one. Mr. Cash, does this take care of the use sale as well as a build out completely of this location?
Yep.
And it's permitted
When the
process?
DEQ permits a landfill, there's basically two different types of permit. There's a Part A permit, which encompasses the entire facility. The whole 229 acres has to go through an initial, basically big picture permit. That work is already done for the Part A permit for the facility. When you go to build individual disposal units, you have to go through what they call a Part B process. Right now, we only have a Part B permit for the 3 active cells, cells A, B, and C. What we're asking for tonight is basically permission to go ahead and permit all other cells at the facility so that we have the entire footprint of the facility permitted with the Part B. So not only will we have the Part A, which is existing now, but then we would also have the Part B.
So this should take care of how many cells you estimate you should have?
We help from SDS on that. I think it goes through cell O.
Approximately maybe 10 to 15. It depends on what size you want each cell to be.
Mr. Chairman, so by permitting the entire facility, if the rules change going forward, we're still basically grandfathered in.
You're not 100% grandfathered in. I'll defer to Bob. Do you want to take that one? Yeah. As far as the risk with permitting.
And Tommy asked quite a few questions on this subject. I hear him up there talking, so I thought I'd mention that.
You might want to, okay, Mike, just so that.
Good evening, I'm Bob Dick, SCS. We've seen examples within the Department of Environmental Quality where there is some concession in environmental regulations that might get promulgated in the future. We use that slang term grandfathering. On the other hand, as you folks know, there's a tendency to get more and more regulations as we go through, so there's absolutely no concrete guarantee that future regulations won't be applied to the facility. The one thing that encumbering a Part B permit does is it secures the remaining acreage as at least being allowed and incorporated in the engineering design for future waste disposal cells. It doesn't obligate the county to construct and utilize those shells, but it seems like a prudent exercise to go ahead and capture the permitting while the regulations are in their current state. There has been, like I said, to answer the question, numerous examples in environmental regulations where having the permit will provide less stringent requirements for a facility in the future.
Presumably there are economies of scale rather than doing it piecemeal as far as the engineering fees themselves?
Yes, engineering fees certainly, with that, substantial economies of scale. Also with, other examples are your public participation. So when you're, currently permitting each waste disposal cell individually, there's a requirement to update, different documents and to go through the public participation process, because you're adding design capacity to the facility. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, maybe there's, let's just say for an example, 10 future cells to build out the facility. That could impose a requirement to go through that public notification, public participation process 10 different times. That's another economy of scale, but certainly the major economy of scale is the engineering fees, and also the uncertainty and delays associated with the regulatory agency that oftentimes takes years to process a permit.
You lost your pencil shop, right?
I sharpened the pencil.
Any more comments? More questions?
How much do we anticipate saving by doing it this way versus, the typical way?
It's difficult to quantify that because some of your future disposal cells, were you to permit those, that could be, since the landfill does have years, decades of life expectancy left, we'd be required to project, to what the fees will be in decades from now. So I don't have an exact answer to you. It's suffice to say that it's tens, if not $100,000 or so. I think that's fair to just throw a ballpark number out on the table, is by capturing it this way instead of each iteration requiring the repetition of the engineering study, geotechnical work, design work. I feel like the county would be recognizing at least that much in cost savings.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no more questions, I'll make a motion. We adopt resolution R06-1217-06.
Heard the motion by Mr. Dooley. Mr. Dooley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkerson?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you, sir. Next, we have a request authorizing staff to issue a request for proposal for the hiring of a commercial real estate broker to assist the county in the sales of Montvale Elementary School property and Jackson Elementary School property. Resolution R06-1217-07 will be presented by Mr. Carl Oaks.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Through the years, staff as well as board members have sought to analyze any future public uses for the Thaxton School as well as the old Montville School. And I think the consensus is those properties have more commercial or industrial potential than they do a use as governmental properties. This is simply a request to issue the RFP. If we come forth with a recommendation to hire an agent, that certainly comes back before the board. So simply a request to issue the request for proposal for real estate services.
Question for anyone?
I'll just make a comment, being that's in my district. Usually, when the agenda gets out as far as it does in advance, I would feel like we got a call, being both of them are in my district. I haven't heard anything from any citizens, and we went on our own with about 3 contacts, Thaxton School back about 3 or 4 months ago, and none of them materialized. At this point, that don't mean it won't come back, but I think it's a good idea to get the RFP issued, just let's see what comes back. We don't need to let them sit there. One of them's in awful shape now.
I got a question. Why is, Body Camp Elementary not being sold?
I think, and we've talked this at the public works level, and staff feels pretty strongly there could be potential. I think the public uses outweigh for that potential property. It's not in the area that's gonna sell for manufacturing or industrial. There's no public water, there's no public sewer. And I think we're gonna have some uses down the road that either we or the school board could use that property. It would be the recommendation of staff that at least at the present time, we keep the body camp property, but I certainly see no reason to keep the Thaxton property or the Old Montville property.
Thank
you. And just to amplify a little bit with what Mr. Dooley said, personally, what I would love to see happen to the Montville property is that it be used for an industrial purpose. It is over 10 acres there, it has water, it has sewer. That would be the most ideal thing that could happen for the community as well as this board, where we could create some jobs. What's probably practically gonna happen is that along that road frontage on either 695 or 460, that someone is gonna wanna put something commercially there. That's why I really, at this point in time, don't wanna get into demolition or relocation of the library. I think we just gotta wait for now to see what comes along.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, any chance if we did demolish it, that other previously interested parties might be interested again?
They're already looking at property right behind this property.
Anyone else?
And those discussions occurred about 6 months ago, and they didn't go real far.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would also make a motion that we adopt resolution R061217-07.
You heard the motion by Mr. Dooley. Mr. Dooley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkerson?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Next, review and discuss proposal amendments to the dock forget ordinance. This will be presented by Mr. Craig Sody.
I'll start it and then we'll pick up with Greg. Before you this evening is suggested amendments to the dock ordinance. These were obviously sent out and also sent them out earlier to the two members that have property or have districts on the lake, Mr. Martin and Mr. Thomas. We've not received any suggested changes to the property, to the ordinance, but this is just for you all to review. We will have a joint public hearing scheduled on this for the 10th of July. We have discussed, Mr. Sody and myself did discuss it with Franklin County. It's my understanding they're gonna probably do exactly what we're doing as far as the way they're gonna do the ordinance. And we'll have a later meeting with Pennsylvania County Kendall on it as well.
Thank you. I'd like to just kind of stand behind what Mr. Boggs said, but also, you know, my whole intent with this is just to remove all references to AEP. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do, and I thought we would do the community well if we notify them on this draft language that it's their responsibility to work with AEP throughout this. From a zoning administrator's point of view, I really don't think a zoning permit at this time would be warranted. I think a building permit is all we really care about. And then let them work it out with AEP.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How about though, say an example, this lawsuit's president pending with, APCO, probably end up going to the state Supreme Court. How about the issue here of, if we go and our company loses this by chance, then there again, we're gonna have to have something in place to replace that. As far as the, like an example, docks, being more than 30% across the code, saying examples, Leesville is an example, they could go out as much as across the country. Depends on where it's at.
I think we've talked at a TLAC level. I've had several conversations with Kamisha from Franklin County on this, and it's just so everybody understands, the one state court case in Franklin County has been decided. That's the Prussell case. The Neeson case is coming up before Judge Reynolds on the 16th, so it'll be next Friday. I won't comment on what I think is going to happen, but I do think at either event, these cases are going to the Virginia Supreme Court. But that's probably 9 months down the road before we have a decision. And your planning staff with administrators from all four counties are planning on having a backup ordinance. So we will have an ordinance that deals with, similar to our old ordinance as to how far you can go across the code and the like, should the shoreline management plan be changed. So we will have a backup ordinance, but it's legally, practically, and the like, we feel this is the best for now until we know where the litigation ultimately ends up.
It's not too often we come up proposing a deregulation, so I think staff has done a good job, moving this forward to serve the board's direction.
Mr. Chairman, as far as what establishes the setbacks and square footage and all that?
Currently, the shoreline management.
At present.
In
In other words, what we're doing here tonight is just that the people that sign the rights of way we're gonna start this.
No, I understand that, I'm just
So
curious.
we won't be sitting out of those, that'll depend on add-ins in Supreme Court. Then Mr. Greg, the people in his department will look at what's there and how to do it and how to work it out. So,
Okay, and then and this is probably forthcoming as well, the disclaimer that needs to be more than what's stated in here. I mean, how would you anticipate or propose clarifying the distinction between the building permit and the AEP issues?
Patrick is working on language to go on the building forms that's very straightforward and very direct in what the property owner's responsibility. And it'll be very, in my understanding is it'll be very clear that it's not the county's responsibility. It is the property owner's responsibility to work it out with AEP. We will not be held liable. They sign off on it. They're acknowledging that it's between them and AEP. County's not a part to it.
It's basically a whole harmless agreement.
Excuse me?
It's a whole harmless agreement.
I get a consensus from the board and consent.
I got one more. Just, I've read this over a couple times, but if I'm reading this right, everything stays exactly the same except the dock situation, right?
Yeah, it's, we're not requiring
All the
anything.
wording and everything, nothing's changing, but what we're saying about dock permits, right?
I would say, yes, sir. Basically it is, all we're doing is just we're striking everything that has to do with AEP or any reference to AEP.
Let me just go through the process real quick. If somebody comes in today and wants to get a building permit for a dock, on the current ordinance, they have to bring in their paperwork from Appalachian Power. And that's the equivalent, we're considering that to be the equivalent of our zoning permit. Somebody comes in the future and wants to get a building permit, they don't have to bring the APCO license with them, or the APCO permit. We'll say, you should go get it, but we're not gonna require it. It's gonna be free will, it's up to the person if they're gonna deal with APCO or not. We will issue a building, as long as they meet the requirements of what is state code or building permit, that's all we're gonna require. We will not require a zoning permit for a dock. We require a zoning permit, obviously, for everything else, with a few exceptions, such as that are the first part of the zoning ordinance, but will not require one for docks. And Greg has covered that in the first part of those sections of what's before you.
You go with it?
I'm good with it.
That's all I need to know.
If there's no more discussion, I'll make a motion to approve. Any more discussion?
We just need a consensus.
So no, we need a, well, yeah, that's right, we just need a, you're absolutely right.
We just need a consensus on this.
It's just consensus.
And you've got that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next, we move to, board comments and report.
We don't have any committee report. We have had one committee meeting. We'll have those minutes in the next meeting. We had a meeting of the Community Services Committee, with Andy and Kevin. And we'll have, that was mainly updates, no recommended action, but just kind of the updates of, what was going on in a couple of departments.
Next, we come to the board members' comments, and I have one. I'm glad Todd's sitting in here, because I can refer right straight to him. On these road signs, it's, on the state right of way, you've seen tons of these signs pop up, free internet, or the thing, if they're on y'all's right of way, can y'all just stop and get them and remove them, or y'all have to just come to this public road?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, to answer your question directly, yes, we can remove them legally. The way we look at it, whether it be a real estate sign or a retail advertising sign, what have you, is if it's not blocking sight distance, we'll make an attempt to contact the owner of the sign. And then if we fail or they don't remove them, we'll pick them up. The internet signs you spoke of, sometimes they're hard to find the owner, because the owner's paying some company to produce and the mass produce and actually place these signs, and they run around stick them everywhere. Some of those we have to pick up with contact. We do watching. It's not a number one priority, but we periodically go through the road.
I noticed, some of it I heard, they was, one guy had like 10 signs in a very small area, right on the road, but I noticed that they had been removed, and it was for business, not just internet, but everything. And, another question, while I'm thinking about on the election signs, they can be put on state right away?
No, sir, they're not supposed to be on state right away. We take a little different approach with the election signs. Obviously, with any sign, if it's a sight distance issue at an intersection, if you pull it out, it's a hazard. But we do pick those up, move them back, what have you. We try to work with all candidates to keep the signs off the right of way as best we can. Absolutely not keep them from being a hazard. But we make multiple attempts to the owner or candidate to get those signs set back.
Fortunately, you haven't called me yet, but I'll get all mine up tomorrow.
I've been looking as we ride around, and 460 is a little bit of a unique animal, because on the eastbound side, generally the 460, we got quite a bit of right of way. On the westbound, we don't have as much. In the 460, that's not everywhere in Bedford County. So sometimes you'll see them a little closer on the westbound side, and people don't realize the right of way. 221 is another one. We've got about 110 foot of right of way from the center of the two lane portion of 221. That's a pretty big swath. So we're, if it's 110 foot right of way, 55 foot from center, and the sign's 40 foot off, we're not going to come chase you down. It's likely not a hazard. It's likely not an issue. That's another thing.
I think that's all I have. Anyone else have questions? Thank you. No more questions from any of the board members. We move to the appointment of a recreation advisory committee person for District 6.
I'm a popular guy tonight. My current member is due to illnesses, had asked me some months back to replace him. That's Mr. Black. So I'm gonna ask that we appoint Jimmy Cundy, Senior. He was the first one I talked to. You may have gotten 2 applications, but he's the first one I talked to. Nothing against Mr. Zodi. I'm trying to get him involved in another one.
So he was applying.
Yeah, he's in my district, believe it or not. He admits it sometimes. But I'd like to make a motion that we accept Jimmy Cundy, and I'm pretty sure he's listed as senior. You got that application? I didn't see it here. Yeah, be senior. I'd like to recommend him for their recreation advisory.
You've heard the motion. Mr. Dillon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So done. Next, we're gonna have, Mr. Carl Bogus report if he has anything.
Only thing I have is since he's sitting next to me, I wanna be complimentary of the deputy county administrator and the evolving, updates that you're getting from county administration. I think this newest one with the way the page is turning and the like is great, and thought I'd see if any comments the board members may have as to that current format.
And I appreciate that, but also a lot of credit goes to Bridget Bucket on the action as well.
Probably 90%.
At least.
I'm pleased to say that I've heard some comments, all positive.
I am too.
And I remember when we first started talking with Carl, that was one of my things I asked him to do, because we don't get a lot of citizens who come to our meetings, but they are reading that on the website. So at least they getting information if they read it, good updates.
Yeah, the ones I started last March, almost now look like the Stone Age, don't they?
I wasn't gonna bother that, but
They're a little rough.
Okay, next, let's move, Carl, you wanna go over the, meeting dates and notice?
Yes, sir. Just a couple of things to mention on that are written there, but just want to touch on it. Your next meeting, we do not have a work session, but we ask that you come in at 6:30, because we will have a meeting in the Broadband Authority. We will have on the agenda to appoint or recommend that we appoint a broadband consultant and engineer to help us get this really rolling out, and may have a few more things. We could put it at 6:45, I'm afraid 15 minutes may not be enough, so we may have a little lag time between the two. But we can sit here and if you're in a cup of coffee and have some good fellowship. But 6:30 for Broadband Authority, regular meeting then at 7 o'clock at perfect time.
26.
Yes, and we will have 4 public hearings on the 26th, but I sat through those at the Planning Commission. None of them were controversial. I think we'll roll through those pretty quickly. 3 special use permits, one being a business at Montvale, Sampson, Bladen, a cell tower, and then we'll also have some minor text amendments. So that's what we'll have on store for the 26th, and we will have a joint meeting at the work session level with the Planning Commission on July the 10th. Greg and I have been working on the agenda for that, and we'll start that meeting. The work session we'll have downstairs, so we can spread out, but then we'll come back up here at 7 and run 2 things fairly quickly for joint public hearings, so we can get action that night, one being the dock ordinance, and then you all will have a few other items for your regular meeting on that night as well. So that's the next 2 meetings.
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn. Heard the motion, Mr. Scott, all in favor?